You'll know that diet is crucial to the management of diabetes. I'd like you to introduce you now to our specialist dietitian, Carin Hume. Carin works with me in our diabetic sports clinic, advising athletes on the optimum amount of food and the type of food to have to manage their diabetes in sport.
We've spoken about how to work out your calorie requirements per day. So now if we think about how much of those calories should come from carbohydrates. Nutrition guidelines sometimes suggest working this out as a percentage of the total energy or calorie intake. So aiming for 55 to 65% of the calories coming from carbohydrates. It is perhaps more helpful and user-friendly for the athlete to determine how many carbohydrates are required per day using tables where it gives you an indication of how many grams you require per kilogram body weight. This table can be found on the website and this is related to how much training you are doing. You can then use food tables or labels to work out how much carbohydrate you require at your different meals and snacks. So whether you should use carbohydrates as a percentage of the calorie intake or whether you should express it as grams per kilogram body weight. The problem with using it as a percentage of the total calorie intake is that if you take a rugby player who would be consuming a fair amount of calories per day, the percentage of carbohydrates may still only be 40%, while he could be consuming up to 10 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram body weight. If we had to work it as 70% of the calories from carbohydrate, he would be consuming probably a lot of carbohydrate, which would probably not be necessary. So if you compare it with the opposite, a female athlete whose energy expenditure is less, say for example only 1500 calories per day, the percentage of carbohydrates as a total of the energy intake would be up to 70%. However, she could only be consuming 7 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram body weight. So it makes more sense to use carbohydrate expressed per kilogram body weight for athletes. Moving on to carb loading. Carb loading refers to a practice where you try to maximize the muscle glycogen stores. This is useful for events lasting 90 minutes or longer. This typically involves a taper in the training along with the increase in carbohydrate intake for 2 to 3 days. Carbohydrate loading should however only be attempted by athletes with diabetes if the diabetes is well controlled. For athletes whose diabetes is well controlled, they can choose to carb load in suitable situations, so where the event is longer than 90 minutes. However, the insulin doses will have to be adjusted carefully.